Happy New Year, everyone. It's officially 2025. Can you believe it? I swear, 2024 just flew by. It feels like just yesterday we were all making resolutions.
Yeah.
And look,
Yeah.
here we are again. Another year older, another year wiser, hopefully. Speaking of starting the year off right, it looks like our listeners have been busy sending in some pretty awesome sources on productivity and goal setting for the year ahead.
Yeah.
So here you dive into these with me.
Absolutely. I've had a chance to skim through what you've sent over. And there's some really interesting stuff in here. I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of this.
I think so too. Let's face it. We all struggle with feeling overwhelmed sometimes.
Right.
There's just so much going on, so many demands on our time and attention. It's easy to feel like you're drowning in to-dos.
It's true. And, one of the sources you sent actually addresses this head on. It introduces this concept called the Eisenhower Matrix. Have you heard of this?
The Eisenhower Matrix. I think I've heard of it, but I'm not sure I can explain it off the top of my head.
Well, it's basically a tool for prioritizing tasks by categorizing them as urgent versus important.
Okay, so how does that actually work? Do you just make a list?
Well, it's more visual than that. Imagine a square divided into 4 quadrants.
Okay.
Each quadrant represents a different combination of urgency and importance. So, the top left quadrant is for things that are both urgent and important, like your do-it-now tasks.
Oh, yeah, I see. So like
Yeah.
a work deadline that's due tomorrow or, a bill that needs to be paid immediately, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Those are the things that tend to cause us the most stress if we let them linger.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they have immediate consequences
Okay.
if we don't deal with them. Okay, so that's the do-it-now quadrant. What about the others?
Well, to the right of the do-it-now quadrant, we have tasks that are important but not urgent.
Right.
These are things you definitely want to make time for, but they don't require immediate action. So think long-term goals, planning for the future, personal development, things like that.
That makes sense. It's recognizing that.
Yeah.
Just because something is important doesn't mean it has to happen right this second.
Right. Exactly. It's about being strategic with your time and energy.
Okay, I'm liking this already. What about the bottom half of the matrix then?
So down in the bottom left, we have those tasks that are urgent but not important.
Urgent but not important. Give me an example of that.
Sure. Think about those constant interruptions that derail your focus. It feels urgent to respond to that email right away, but is it truly important in the grand scheme of things?
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works. So it's those tasks that feel like they demand our attention, but they're not actually moving us towards our goals.
You got it. Those are the things we often end up spending way too much time on because they feel urgent, but they're really just distractions.
Okay, and finally, the bottom right quadrant. What goes there?
That one's pretty straightforward. It's for tasks that are neither urgent nor important.
Uh-huh. The quadrant of doom.
You could say that. This is your eliminate category, the true time wasters that you can simply get rid of to free up mental space and energy.
So mindless scrolling on social media, binge watching shows that don't really interest you, things like that.
You got it. It's about being honest with yourself about how you're spending your time and making conscious choices about what to let go of.
I love this. The Eisenhower Matrix isn't just about figuring out what to do first. It's also about being honest with yourself about what you can completely ditch. I like that a lot.
It's a powerful tool. And, what's really interesting is this next source you sent in, it actually builds on this idea of prioritization, but it takes it a step further.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's all about this concept called deep work.
Deep work.
Yeah. And it's not just about getting more done. It's about producing your absolute best work and feeling truly fulfilled in the process.
Okay, deep work. I like the sound of that already.
Right.
So how do we actually, do deep work?
Well, it's all about giving your undivided attention to the task at hand. No distractions, no multitasking.
Oh, that sounds tough.
Yeah.
Especially these days.
It is. It takes practice.
Yeah.
But it's about tapping into that state of flow. Yeah, where you're completely immersed in what you're doing and you're able to produce your best work.
Like being in the zone. Right.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is that there are actually several different approaches to deep work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was just sit down and focus.
It's more nuanced than that. Our sources actually suggest 4 main strategies.
4. Okay, lay them on me.
Okay, so there's the monastic approach.
Monastic. Like a monk.
Pretty much. It involves complete isolation from distractions, like actually going off to a cabin in the woods to work.
Wow, that's intense.
It is, but it's not for everyone. Then there's the bimodal approach.
Bimodal?
This one involves alternating between periods of intense work and then less demanding activity.
So like deep work sprints followed by, I don't know, taking a walk or something.
Exactly. Then we have the rhythmic approach.
Rhythmic, okay.
This one's all about building a consistent routine of deep work, scheduling it into your day every day.
So it's like making it a habit.
Yeah. Treating it with the same level of commitment as, say, an important meeting.
That's a good way to think about it.
And then lastly, there's the journalistic approach.
Journalistic.
This one's about fitting deep work into your day whenever you can. Kind of like a journalist who has to be ready to write a story at a moment's notice.
That sounds like a lot of context switching.
It can be, but it works for some people.
So it's really about finding what works best for you. Right?
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to deep work.
That's good to know, because I was starting to feel a little intimidated by the whole monk thing.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, deep work takes consistent effort, doesn't it? It's not something you can just do once and then be done with.
You're absolutely right. And that's why our next source is so relevant.
Oh.
It's all about the power of habits.
Habits.
Yeah. You know, those automatic behaviors we do without even thinking about them, like brushing our teeth or making coffee in the morning.
Right. So how do habits relate to deep work?
Well, if we can make deep work a habit, then it becomes much easier to do it consistently. We don't have to rely on willpower or motivation as much.
That makes sense.
And one of your sources highlights this really simple but effective strategy. It's called the Seinfeld strategy.
The Seinfeld strategy. Does this involve stand-up comedy routines or double-dipping chips?
Not quite.
Okay.
So hey, whatever works, right?
Right.
So the Seinfeld strategy, it's all about not breaking the chain.
Not breaking the chain.
Yeah. It's about showing up every day, even if it's just for a short amount of time.
So it's not about the duration of the effort.
Not necessarily. It's more about the consistency. Like, if you want to make writing a habit, even writing for 15 minutes every day is better than writing for 2 hours one day and then skipping the next 3.
I see. It's about building that momentum.
Yeah.
Day by day.
Exactly. And you can apply that same principle to deep work.
So even 30 minutes of focused work every day can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's about making it a non-negotiable part of your routine.
This is making a lot of sense. I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
That's great.
But let's be real. There are also those pesky habits that hold us back.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like procrastination and checking social media every 5 minutes.
Those are big ones.
And your sources actually talk about these, don't they?
They do.
Okay, what are some of the bad habits we should be aware of?
Well, one of the sources lists 12 self-destructive habits to avoid.
12. Okay, hit me with the highlights.
All right, so some of the big ones are making excuses, hitting the snooze button every morning, being a yes person, overthinking things, not taking care of your physical health.
Oof, a few of those are hitting a little close to home.
I know, right?
We've all got our vices.
But the good news is there are also plenty of positive habits we can cultivate.
Okay, tell me about the good stuff.
So some of the habits that your sources recommend are prioritizing sleep, eating healthy, exercising regularly, practicing mindfulness, connecting with nature, things like that.
Those all sound pretty good. But, you know,
Yeah.
they also sound kind of, I don't know, generic.
I know what you mean.
Like, we all know we should be doing those things,
Yeah.
but it's easier said than done.
You're right. It's not about being perfect. It's about making small, sustainable changes and finding what works for you.
So what stands out to you from that list? Is there one habit you're particularly drawn to?
You know, I think prioritizing sleep is huge. A well-rested mind is a focused mind.
I agree with that. It's hard to do deep work when you're running on fumes. But, okay, so we've got our priorities sorted. We're ready to do deep work. We're building good habits. But how do we actually structure our day to make all this happen? I feel like we need a framework here.
You're right, and that's where time blocking comes in.
Time blocking.
Yeah, it's about intentionally scheduling specific blocks of time for different activities throughout your day.
Okay, so it's more than just like having a to-do list.
It is. It's about being proactive with your time rather than reactive.
So I shouldn't just be like, okay, I'll answer emails whenever they come in.
Right. It's about deciding in advance when you're going to work on certain tasks.
Oh, interesting.
And one of your sources actually provides a sample time blocking schedule.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a visual representation of how you might structure your day.
I'd love to see that.
Okay, so it starts with an early morning workout from 6 to 7 a.m.
Oh, wow. I'm not sure I'm cut out for that.
Haha, well, remember, this is just a template. You can adjust the times and activities to fit your own schedule.
Right, of course.
But then after the workout, it's time for deep work from 7 to 11 a.m.
4 hours of deep work. That seems like a lot.
It is a significant chunk of time, but that's the point of time blocking. You're intentionally carving out large blocks of time for your most important tasks.
I see.
And then after that, there's a lunch break, followed by more deep work in the afternoon, as well as some time for email and meetings.
Okay, so it's not all just heads down work.
No, it's about finding a balance
Yeah,
and making sure you have time for all the important aspects of your life.
this is really helpful. I'm feeling inspired to give time blocking a try.
That's great.
But, you know, even with the best time blocking system in place, there are still going to be days when we struggle to stay focused.
Right.
Like, what about procrastination? Any advice on how to deal with that?
Oh, procrastination is a beast for sure. But your sources offer some good tips for taming it.
Okay, I'm all ears. What do they suggest?
One technique that stood out to me was the eat the frog method.
Eat the frog. What does that even mean?
It means tackling your most daunting task first thing in the morning.
So, like, if I have a big presentation to prepare for, I should just dive right into that first thing.
Exactly. Get it off your plate and the rest of your day will feel so much lighter.
That's an interesting way to think about it, but wouldn't that just make me want to stay in bed even longer?
Maybe, but think about the feeling of accomplishment you'll have once that big task is done.
True, it's like a weight lifted.
Right. And it frees up your mental energy to focus on other things.
Okay, I'm willing to give it a try. Any other tips for beating procrastination?
Another one that resonated with me is the idea of breaking down large tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
It works because it makes the task seem less daunting.
And you get that sense of progress as you check off each step.
Exactly. Small wins lead to big victories.
I like that. So, we've covered a lot of ground today. From the Eisenhower matrix to deep work to time blocking to habits. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's all about finding what works best for you and building a system that supports your goals and values.
Exactly. So, listener, as we wrap up this deep dive into maximizing your 2025, I want to leave you with this question. Of all the strategies we've discussed today, which one resonates with you the most?
And what's one small step you can take today to start putting that strategy into action?
Remember, even small changes can lead to big results. So don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for you. We're excited to see what you accomplish in 2025. Feel free to reach out and share your progress or ask any questions you have.
Here's to a productive and fulfilling year.